Chapter 1. Aunt Jean, I agree to go back to Australia for the arranged meeting. Joyce mustered her courage to answer her aunt's call, stating her intentions right from the start. On the other end of the line, her aunt's joy was palpable. Wonderful, Joyce, I've booked you a flight for a week from now. Use the remaining time to be with your brother-in-law. You'll be settling in Australia, so it will be hard to see each other again. He's taken such good care of you all these years. He'll definitely be sad to see you go. No, he can't wait for me to go as far away as possible. Joyce whispered softly, her eyes fixed on the artful photograph hanging on the wall. It was a picture of her and her brother-in-law, taken when she was just starting middle school. In the photo, Joyce, wearing a puffy dress, was holding onto Austin, who was in a black suit and smiling radiantly. Austin was affectionately stroking her hair, but they could never go back to that time. Joyce tilted her head back, fighting back tears, her gaze traveling past the photograph to a more distant past. 10 years ago, her older sister, Shirley, had brought her home from the orphanage, patting her little head and telling her they were a family now. Back then, Shirley and Austin were newlyweds, facing immense pressure in their lives. One day, after working overtime, Shirley suffered a sudden brain hemorrhage and passed away before Joyce could even get to the hospital. Joyce threw herself onto Shirley's body, sobbing uncontrollably, believing she had once again become an unloved orphan. It was Austin who, swallowing his own grief, held her in the same way his wife used to and told her he would fulfill Shirley's wish and take care of her until she grew up. And he took care of her for 10 years. Joyce became the apple of Austin's eye. He handled everything related to her personally. From booking her flight tickets to school to picking out cute socks for her, Austin did it all. When Joyce was afraid of the dark, it was her brother-in-law who held her and said, "My arms will always be a safe harbor for you." She fell asleep in his embrace, and eventually, it developed into a habit where she could only fall asleep wearing his clothes. Austin tacitly approved of her behavior. He would lovingly ruffle her hair, saying, "You can take any of my clothes you want." Joyce was at an age of romantic awakening, faced with such a gentle and ever-present man. She fell hopelessly in love. On her 18th birthday, Austin wheeled out a huge, multi-tiered cake and asked with a smile, "What wish will my little princess make?" Joyce stood with her hands on her hips, a wide grin on her face. "I want to marry you." From that day on, Austin kept his distance from Joyce and rarely came home, but Joyce didn't give up. She wanted to try one more time. She sent him text after text, pouring out her feelings, wanting to give her love one last chance. But her hopes crumbled when she saw his social media post with a photo of another woman, captioned, "So lucky to have you." She decided to stop bearing her soul. Unexpectedly, that evening, Austin came home with 2 exquisite gift boxes before quickly leaving again. Joyce thought it was a sign of his surrender, that he was willing to accept her. Her heart raced as she excitedly opened the mysterious gifts. When she saw a beautiful nightgown inside, a blush crept up her cheeks. It was a perfect fit. Joyce nervously clutched the hem of the gown as she sat on the sofa, waiting. The door opened, and when Austin saw Joyce, he erupted in fury. He pointed a finger at her nose. "Have you no sense of decency? This is a matching set I bought for my fiancé." "It's not for you to wear," Joyce screamed, breaking down. "Why can't the woman standing by your side be me?" Austin clenched his fists, his words devoid of any warmth. "Get rid of those filthy feelings. I'm your brother-in-law, and I always will be." Joyce bit her lower lip so hard it hurt, tears splashing onto the back of her hand. "But you've taken care of me for 10 years. If my sister were still alive..." Austin cut her off with a cold stare. "If your sister were still alive, she would regret bringing home an ungrateful, shameless wretch who dared to have improper thoughts about her husband." He slammed the door and left, leaving Joyce to collapse in tears. Her phone rang. She subconsciously thought it was him. "Austin," it was her aunt's voice on the other end. "Joyce, why don't you come live in Australia with me? You can keep my daughter company." Joyce mumbled a few words and hung up. She didn't want to leave Austin so easily. But over the next few days, Austin started appearing with conspicuous frequency. The difference was, there was always a beautiful woman by his side. He kissed and embraced the woman right in front of Joyce. It felt like a knife twisting in Joyce's heart, causing her immense pain. She watched as Austin and Lorraine acted like a couple, holding hands, hugging, and doing all the intimate things partners do. The pain in Joyce's heart turned to numbness. She had run out of tears. In just a few short days, she had come to terms with reality. She had to let Austin go. Chapter 2. Joyce sat in the living room, a pile of photos of her and Austin spread out before her. Over the past decade, she and Austin had created countless memories. The door opened from the outside. Austin frowned when he saw Joyce in her thin clothes. He glanced at his watch. It was almost midnight. But he walked past her without a second glance. "Austin, these photos." Austin gave her an indifferent look. "Do whatever you want with them. Don't ask me about such trivial things anymore." The heavy slam of a door followed. Joyce closed her eyes, the sound echoing like a hammer blow to her heart. A sudden sourness filled her nose, and tears streamed down her face. The old Austin would never have spoken to her so harshly. He knew that ever since Joyce lost her family, she had subconsciously wanted to take more pictures as keepsakes. She had 10 thick photo albums of just the two of them. For 10 years, Austin had always indulged her habit of taking pictures together. But everything changed after she confessed her feelings on his birthday. Austin gradually faded from her life. Joyce hadn't seen him in a long time. The occasional small gift stopped, and he no longer bought her favorite breakfast. After his girlfriend appeared, Austin's gaze towards Joyce grew even colder. They were like two parallel lines. Joyce understood why, but there was nothing she could do. She could only sit alone in the backyard and watch the photos of her and her brother-in-law turn to ash. She held a cat in her arms, a gift Austin had once given her, named Snowball. Just as she was thinking about giving the cat to a friend, a shrill voice cut through the air. "Whose wretched cat is this? Get rid of it, there will be no animals in this house from now on. I find them filthy." Rage boiled in Joyce's chest. She would not allow anyone to insult something Austin had once given her with affection. "Snowball has been in this house longer than you have. You do well to remember your place, Miss Lorraine." Not to be outdone, Lorraine grabbed Joyce's arm, her tone provocative. "Don't be so hasty. The best part is yet to come." Before Joyce could process Lorraine's words, Lorraine shoved her a few times and then threw herself into the swimming pool. From a distance, Austin rushed over, pulled Lorraine out of the water, and glared coldly at Joyce. "When did you become so vicious? She can't swim. What if she had drowned after you pushed her in?" Lorraine sobbed dramatically, hiccuping between tears. "Austin, don't blame Joyce. I fell into the pool by accident. I was just so scared of that cat." Without hesitation, Austin commanded, "Joyce, if you still see me as your brother-in-law, give that cat away. Lorraine is allergic to cat fur, so we can't have a cat in the house. And from now on, show some respect to my fiancé." In the past, Joyce would have been heartbroken, struggling to breathe. Now she just smiled faintly. "Austin, this is my cat. I have the right to let it stay." Austin felt that Joyce had changed. She used to seek his opinion and advice. Now, it seemed she no longer relied on him to make decisions. It made him a little uncomfortable. Austin's dark eyes locked onto Joyce. "Either you stay or the cat stays." "I understand, Austin." Joyce's heart turned cold. There was one thing she didn't say out loud. "Neither my cat nor I will be here anymore." The doorbell rang, and the voice of a delivery man came from the entrance. "Is Mr. Austin home? There's a delivery for you that requires a signature." Austin, holding Lorraine, went to the door. He quickly signed and noticed the words "flight ticket" neatly written on the envelope. Joyce saw the words on the envelope and stared at Austin. "Austin, that's my delivery. I forgot to change the recipient's name to mine." "Sorry," Austin asked, confused. "Where are you going?" "Why would you need a flight ticket?" Joyce's expression was calm. "My professor's daughter is going to a concert, and he asked me to book the tickets for her." Austin was about to press further, but Lorraine, in his arms, clutched her forehead. "Austin, my head hurts." Austin let it go, hastily handing the envelope to Joyce before leaving. Joyce breathed a sigh of relief. She realized she had habitually used Austin's contact information. If Austin had opened the envelope, he would have discovered that Joyce was leaving. Thank goodness he didn't. What a pity he didn't. Chapter 3. After the swimming pool incident, Lorraine brazenly moved into the villa. She began making drastic changes to the house's decor. Lorraine came into Joyce's room and pointed a slender finger at the curtains. "Pink doesn't suit me. Burgundy is more my style." Joyce watched as her favorite curtains were taken down. Lorraine ordered imperiously, "This will be my room from now on. I'm just making a few changes in advance." "No problem, right?" Joyce silently picked up her cat and left the room. As she went downstairs, her eyes widened in shock. The living room table was covered in roses. She instantly found it hard to breathe, and her skin began to itch. She was allergic to roses. Austin knew that, which was why he never had them in the house. She felt a wave of dizziness and fumbled for her medicine bottle, only to find it empty. Joyce stumbled back to her room and tremblingly pulled a bottle of pills from her drawer. Just as she was about to swallow them dry, the bottle was snatched from her hand by Lorraine. Joyce, weakened, collapsed onto the floor, tears streaming down her face. The difficulty in breathing made her face pale and her lips colorless. The thinning air deprived her brain of oxygen. "Give me the medicine." Lorraine looked down at her and sneered. "Beg me. So you're allergic to roses? Oh, I'm so sorry. Roses just happen to be my favorite flower. Austin will surely grant my every wish, so you'll just have to tolerate it." Smiling, Lorraine threw the medicine into the trash can. Joyce was so angry she felt a tightness in her chest, and her breathing became even more rapid. "Aren't you afraid Austin will hold you responsible for this? If he finds out he's marrying a venomous snake, what do you think he'll do to you?" "Give me back my medicine," Joyce panicked. Her allergy was life-threatening. The agitation caused her heart to palpitate, and her vision went black. She fainted. When Joyce woke up again, the smell of disinfectant filled her nostrils. A grating voice sounded in her ears. "Austin, I'm so sorry. I didn't know Joyce was allergic to roses. I almost made a terrible mistake." From the corner of her eye, Joyce saw Lorraine crying in Austin's arms. Austin's hand was gently stroking her back. When he saw Joyce was awake, he questioned her coldly. "Why are you blaming Lorraine for your own allergy? You have a mouth. Don't you know how to ask to have the flowers removed? Lorraine has been running around taking care of you, so why do you give her the cold shoulder when you wake up? Drop your spoiled princess attitude." Joyce dug her fingers into her palm to keep from lashing out. She didn't tell him that Lorraine had thrown her life-saving medicine in the trash. She was leaving this place soon. There was no need to waste her breath on such trivial matters. Joyce looked down at her fingertips, her dark eyes calm as she looked at Austin. "You're right, Austin. It's all my fault." Austin froze for a moment, the words of accusation stuck in his throat. "Lorraine is going to be living with us. Tidy up a room for her. Whatever you need to buy, just use this card." He left a black credit card for Joyce and started to leave with Lorraine. In the past, Joyce would have been devastated. Now she felt nothing but peace. "From now on, it will only be you two. There is no more us." Unexpectedly, Austin's phone rang. After listening to the call, he looked at the pale Joyce on the bed. He said, word by word, "Did you make an appointment at the Visa Application Center?" Joyce looked down at her fingertips. "Yes, my professor needs to get a visa. You know how old he is." Austin blurted out, "Doesn't your professor have a family? Why do you have to worry about everything for him?" Joyce calmly handed her phone to Austin. "Why don't you call and ask his family why they're not helping him with his visa?" Austin instinctively refused. "I don't have time." Joyce clapped her hands. "Then don't worry about it so much, Austin. I'm an adult." Beside them, Lorraine, seeing all of Austin's attention on Joyce, quickly squeezed his hand and pouted, "Austin, I'm hungry." Austin lovingly stroked Lorraine's hair. "Let's go. We'll get your favorite sweet and sour pork ribs." Joyce watched as Austin left with Lorraine in his arms and said nothing. Chapter 4. After being discharged from the hospital, the first thing Joyce did was pick up her visa. Then she returned to the villa to pack her things. After everything was packed, Joyce realized that Snowball, who was usually very clingy, was nowhere to be seen. She called out his name everywhere. Joyce went to his favorite hiding spot, and when she saw Snowball lying motionless in the grass, her eyes widened in horror. She rushed over, her hands trembling as she touched him. His body was already cold and stiff, his eyes were white, and his tongue was black. A half-eaten can of cat food lay in the grass nearby. A sharp cry erupted from Joyce, as if she was releasing all the grievances of the past few days. "Snowball, my Snowball, I couldn't keep him and I couldn't even keep you." Her beloved cat had been poisoned. Besides Lorraine, no one else would harm her cat. Joyce's eyes were red and swollen from crying. She placed Snowball's body in a beautiful box. "I'm sorry I failed to protect you." The sound of high heels clicking on the ground approached, and Lorraine stood before Joyce. "Oh, are you crying? I'm the one who poisoned this cat. What can you do about it?" "Don't be so selfish." Now it can keep your short-lived sister company." Joyce couldn't bear it anymore. Lorraine knew exactly which buttons to push. Her sister's death was a lifelong source of pain for her. "Don't you dare talk about my sister like that." Suddenly, Lorraine slapped herself across the face. Austin arrived just in time to see this and rushed over, pulling Lorraine into his arms protectively. "I told you to show Lorraine some respect. I haven't treated you badly, so why are you like a porcupine around Lorraine, determined to hurt her?" He saw the body in the box and stiffened for a moment. His dark eyes dimmed, and his disgust for Joyce deepened. Austin looked at Joyce with disappointment. "It's fine if you choose to stay, but you should have just given the cat away. How could you be so cruel as to poison it? It protected you for so long. How could you do it?" Joyce bit her lip hard to keep from crying out loud. "Snowball, he was." Before she could finish, Lorraine interrupted her. She covered her cheek, tears streaming down her face, looking utterly pitiable. Lorraine said meekly, "Joyce was just worried about future troubles, so she wanted a permanent solution." "Don't blame her." Austin pinched the bridge of his nose. "You don't have to make excuses for her. I was wrong about her." He went back inside to boil an egg for Lorraine to soothe the red mark on her face. Austin said to Joyce, his face devoid of expression, "Apologize to Lorraine, or I'll send you to a finishing school to have someone teach you some decency and manners." Hearing this, Joyce froze. She suddenly felt that everything she had held onto was a joke. She was leaving soon and didn't want any more trouble. So, without any psychological burden, she bowed and apologized to Lorraine. What chilled Joyce to the bone was that her 10 years of companionship couldn't earn a shred of trust from her brother-in-law. Chapter 5. Joyce became even more quiet and withdrawn. Austin and Lorraine started appearing together more frequently. Joyce's initial sadness turned into indifference. One night, she watched as Austin took Lorraine into his room. The light in the room stayed on all night. Joyce sat alone in the living room for the entire night. As the first rays of dawn broke, Joyce thought about making a bowl of noodle soup for Austin before she left. She was so distracted that she knocked over the bowl. As Joyce hurriedly cleaned up the mess, she cut her finger on a shard of glass. Austin looked down at the flustered Joyce. Joyce lowered her eyes, her lips turning down. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. I'll pay for the bowl." Austin replied nonchalantly, "Do I look like I need the money?" He then handed her a credit card. "Mrs. Lynn told me you moved everything from your room to the warehouse. Take this money and buy some things you like. It looks too empty and uncomfortable." Joyce looked at the card in front of her, flustered. "No, thank you, Austin. My living expenses are enough, and besides, I can still." Joyce suddenly remembered that the moment she agreed to leave, she no longer had time for her jewelry design work. She fell silent. Austin clenched his fists, hiding his anxious emotions. Seeing Joyce's sadness felt like a heavy stone on his chest, making it hard to breathe. Joyce's phone vibrated. She glanced at it and saw a news alert. The dark horse of the jewelry design world, Black Fairy Tale, a one-of-a-kind wedding ring meticulously crafted by Miss Lorraine. Black symbolizes a love that is steadfast and eternal. Since its debut, the ring had taken the world by storm, setting a trend in the fashion industry. A sharp pain shot through Joyce's heart. Tears welled up in her eyes, but she fought to hold them back. At that moment, the doorbell rang. Joyce heard the door open. She then realized that Austin had already given Lorraine a key to the house. Lorraine was the true mistress of this villa. Both the house and the man were hers. Joyce realized she was a burden to Austin. She needed to sort out her affairs quickly. She had to turn her attention to the old family house her sister had left her before she died, a valuable old courtyard house. In this bustling area, it was worth a lot of money. If she waited a few more years, the price might even double. But Joyce needed money urgently, so she contacted a real estate agent to list the property. Unexpectedly, on the same afternoon the house was listed, a client contacted Joyce. As she stood at the door with the key, she saw the glamorous Lorraine. Lorraine covered her mouth in surprise. "What a coincidence, Joyce. Silly me, the Joyce family was a family of scholars, so of course, the house they left behind would be magnificent. How about this? I'm willing to pay double the price for this house." Joyce thought for a moment and then refused without hesitation. "I'm sorry, but if it's you, the house is not for sale." She turned to leave, but Lorraine grabbed her wrist. "Give me a reason." Joyce felt a burning pain from her wrist. This is the house my sister left me. She wouldn't like you. Lorraine smirked and tightened her grip. And what if I insist on buying it? Chapter 6. Joyce twisted her hand back and squeezed a pressure point on Lorraine's hand. I said, it's not for sale. She shook off Lorraine's hand and turned away. Lorraine frowned and shouted, you're just a fallen socialite. Do you really think everyone still treasures you? Austin, who had just arrived, happened to see Joyce expressionlessly shook off her hand away from Lorraine. He scolded Joyce. Is this how you treat my girlfriend, Joyce? What have I ever done to you that makes you bully her like this? Tears welled up in Lorraine's eyes instantly, and she slipped into Austin's arms like a delicate vine. Austin, don't blame Joyce. It was my own carelessness. Joyce found it ironic. The man who had once cherished her was now holding someone else. She dutifully apologized. She was leaving this place soon. She couldn't be bothered with useless explanations. Austin frowned at Joyce. Your aunt wants you to call her back. What's so urgent? Joyce's eyelids twitched. She didn't want Austin to suspect anything. She said nonchalantly, Aunt Jean's friend is having a birthday, and she wants to invite me to the party. Austin breathed a sigh of relief and even offered, pick out a nice gift and bring one from me as well. Joyce discreetly glanced at Lorraine, and once she was sure Lorraine wouldn't mention the house sale, she relaxed a little. Her property was bought by a mysterious client, who transferred the full amount into Joyce's account without even meeting her. For a moment, Joyce knew what it felt like to be rich. Now that she had the money, Joyce could leave without any worries. She called her aunt back. Just when she thought her aunt might be busy, the call was answered. Joyce, have you handled everything? Your flight is tomorrow. I'll be at the airport to pick you up personally. A wave of warmth washed over Joyce. Remember to tell your brother-in-law clearly why you're not staying with him anymore. Otherwise, he'll turn the world upside down to find you. He's taken care of you for 10 years. He definitely won't want to let you go. Joyce's eyes curved into a smile. Okay, she had completely erased any trace of her existence. I shouldn't have coveted something that didn't belong to me. I'll find a suitable man in Australia to marry and never come back to be an eyesore. Austin, I wish you happiness. Joyce didn't sleep all night. She left the villa with her suitcase. The sea breeze tousled her hair. As she looked at the vast water, a sense of sorrow for the parting filled her heart. In the past, she might have been sad, but now, after accumulating so much disappointment, she would no longer be trapped by these troubling emotions. Inside the villa, Austin stood in the living room, a storm brewing in his dark eyes. He said coldly to Mrs. Lynn, Mrs. Lynn, where is Miss Joyce? Mrs. Lynn trembled. Mr. Austin, her room is completely empty and her only suitcase is gone. Austin was furious. He gritted his teeth. Check all the places she usually goes. If you can't find her, don't bother coming back. He dug his thumbnail into his skin, his body trembling uncontrollably. How dare Joyce run away from him? He wouldn't allow it. Austin took out his phone and called his secretary. Track Joyce's location and phone records. I don't care if you have to dig up the earth, find her for me. There was a moment of stunned silence on the other end, followed by the sound of typing. Found her. Miss Joyce is currently on an airplane. The plane has already taken off and is approaching international airspace. We can't intercept it. Her destination is Australia. In a call with her aunt a week ago, Miss Joyce agreed to go there for a blind date. Chapter 7. Joyce stood on the observation deck, gazing at the boundless sea. The wind whipped through her hair. In another 2 hours, she would arrive in Australia. Her aunt had been chatting with her throughout the journey. Upon finally arriving in Australia, she saw her aunt's family waiting in the arrivals area. Aunt Jean, Uncle, Chloe. Joyce waved at them, spotting Chloe diligently holding up a sign. Tears welled up in her eyes. This is wonderful. My aunt's family is so willing to accept me. Chloe was her aunt and uncle's daughter, 12 years old this year. Like a busy little bee, she held up a sign that read "Welcome home, Joyce," afraid that Joyce wouldn't see it. When Joyce reached her aunt, her uncle took her suitcase. He lifted it and commented, "Quite heavy." Her aunt asked cheerfully, "Did Austin see you off? How could you manage such a heavy suitcase by yourself?" Joyce just smiled without saying a word. But her aunt noticed that Joyce's eyes seemed to hold a hint of sadness when Austin was mentioned. She sensed that the relationship between them might not be so simple. Her aunt wondered, could it be that Austin didn't want Joyce to come to Australia? She had no way of knowing for sure and decided to find some time to contact Austin. Chloe wiped the sweat from her forehead and threw herself into Joyce's arms. She hugged her so tightly that Joyce's phone was knocked out of her pocket. The phone hit the ground, the screen shattering. It was clearly broken beyond repair. Tears filled Chloe's pretty eyes as she wrung her hands. "I'm sorry, cousin. I didn't do it on purpose." Joyce gently stroked her head. "It's okay. This phone was useless to me anyway." She casually tossed the phone into a nearby trash can without a hint of regret. Hearing this, her aunt's suspicion grew. She blurted out, "If the phone is broken, you can just buy a new one, but you should keep the SIM card. Otherwise, you won't be able to contact your friends back home, and you'll get anxious. You're so attached to your brother-in-law. You can't go more than an hour without contacting him. Are you sure you want to throw this phone away?" Joyce smiled warmly at her loving aunt. "It's fine. I'm not going back. I've already sold the house my sister left me and gave all the money to Austin. He raised me for 10 years. I can't be a freeloader. Besides, he's going to get married someday. If I, the third wheel, keep hanging around, his future wife might not be happy." Her aunt hugged Joyce tightly, her heart aching for her. "Good girl, you've really grown up. This is for the best. It wasn't easy for your brother-in-law to take care of you for 10 years. Debts of kindness are the hardest to repay. Don't worry, your aunt will take care of you from now on." Chloe, standing by, finally had a chance to speak. She smiled sweetly at Joyce. "Cousin, welcome to Australia. I got you a lot of presents. I hope you like them. I'll be even nicer to you than your brother-in-law was." Joyce ruffled Chloe's hair. "Thank you, Chloe." Chloe hugged Joyce's waist, rubbing her fluffy head against her. "Chloe likes you the most, cousin. Why did it take you so long to come find me?" Joyce's expression stiffened for a moment, and she patted Chloe's head a bit unnaturally. "I'm sorry, Chloe, I was late." Her aunt smiled gently. "Now that Joyce is here, our family is complete. Don't you love going to jewelry design exhibitions? I signed you up for one. You can go with your blind date in a few days." Joyce then remembered she had 2 reasons for coming to Australia. One was to get away from Austin, and the other was to agree to a blind date. She looked down at her feet. "Whatever you arrange is fine, Aunt Jean." Chloe hugged Joyce excitedly. "Cousin, are you hungry? Are you tired? I can take you to the biggest and best room in our house to rest, or I can take you to eat whatever you want." Joyce's heart was soothed, and the sadness of leaving faded. She picked up Chloe. "Okay, let's go get some grilled fish." Seeing the 2 girls getting along so well, her aunt's eyes filled with tears. She had always felt guilty for not being able to take Joyce in years ago. Now she would wholeheartedly care for Joyce, which would also give her late sister, Shirley, some peace. Shirley had treasured her younger sister more than anything. Joyce's arrival made her family feel complete. For the rest of her life, she would not let Joyce suffer even the slightest grievance. Chapter 8, meanwhile, Australia. If he remembered correctly, Joyce's aunt lived in Australia. Joyce had gone to a faraway country behind his back. When he found out the truth, anger and jealousy nearly consumed his sanity. "Why did you lie to me? Why did you leave me?" It felt like a knife was plunged into Austin's heart. The pain was so intense he could barely breathe. He trembled with rage, muttering, "Fine. How dare Joyce go on a blind date behind my back?" A storm brewed in Austin's dark eyes. He repeated in disbelief, "Are you saying that Joyce was planning to leave a week ago?" The veins on his hands bulged. The anger inside him was about to burn away his reason. The assistant on the other end of the phone timidly replied, "Yes. Mr. Austin, we've confirmed that the package you signed for recently was Miss Joyce's flight ticket to Australia." Austin's vision went black. He clenched his fists. God, what had he done to provoke Joyce? If only he had paid a little more attention, Joyce wouldn't have slipped away right under his nose. But it wasn't over yet. The secretary's voice continued. The visa was also recently processed by Miss Joyce. Austin closed his eyes. That was right. He had missed another chance to discover that Joyce was leaving him. All the clues had been there. He had been blind, deluding himself and choosing to ignore them. Austin began to reflect on when Joyce had stopped telling him the truth. She had even resorted to lying to deceive him. His eyes turned red as he remembered Joyce, pale and lying in the hospital bed, handing him her phone, asking him if he wanted to call her professor. What had he said then? Right, he had said he didn't have time. And that call from Joyce's aunt, if only he had asked one more question, he could have uncovered the fact that Joyce was about to leave home. Austin gritted his teeth. "Buy me a ticket to Australia?" Before he could finish, another call came in. He thought it was Joyce with a new number, so he eagerly answered. A crying voice came through the receiver. "Austin, I cut my hand. Can you take me to the hospital?" "It hurts so much," Austin said coldly. "Why don't you just say you're about to bleed to death?" "If I find out you had anything to do with Joyce leaving, I will not spare you," Lorraine bit her lip. "Austin, I had absolutely nothing to do with Joyce leaving. You know I've been with you this whole time." Austin closed his eyes. "You must have said something to her. I will settle the score with you." "You should know your place," Lorraine sobbed dramatically. "Austin, you said I would be the woman you'd spend the rest of your life with, that I would be Mrs. Austin." The memory of his charade with Lorraine now disgusted him. He said word by word, "Don't you understand? We just had a contract. I only wanted to keep Joyce by my side. As for you, you were just a shield. If you keep talking nonsense, I will have your family's name erased from this city." Lorraine's crying stopped abruptly. "Okay, I understand, Mr. Austin." Austin rushed furiously into Joyce's room. Looking at the empty room, his heart ached as if it were bleeding. Austin returned to his study and pulled out Joyce's favorite storybook. 2 cards fell out. One was the bank card he had given her, and the other was Joyce's. Austin had his secretary check the balance on Joyce's card. The news came back that there was a balance of $10 million. At the same time, he received another shocking piece of news. His secretary had found a record of Joyce selling a house on the market, and that house had been sold for exactly $10 million. Austin's vision went black, and he nearly lost his balance. Joyce had actually sold the house her sister had left her. Austin panicked. She was drawing a clear line between them. He should have realized sooner that Joyce was planning to leave. The moment Mrs. Lynn told him Joyce's room was empty, he hadn't even considered that she would leave. Joyce had been with him for 10 years. She couldn't possibly leave him so easily. With red-rimmed eyes, Austin booked the earliest flight to Australia. Chapter 9. He recounted all of Joyce's unusual behaviors before she left. The package he received was her flight ticket, and the visa she processed was her own. Even the call from her aunt was a signal that Joyce was leaving. He was such a fool. If only he had been willing to dig a little deeper, Joyce's plan to leave would have failed. The opportunities to uncover the truth had slipped through his fingers time and time again. He had been too arrogant, thinking Joyce would never leave him. He thought that by cutting off her romantic feelings, he could deceive himself into keeping her by his side. Austin was terrified. He was a full 8 years older than Joyce. The judgment of society would swallow them both, and he didn't dare to take that gamble. Otherwise, the moment he learned of Joyce's feelings, he would have naturally made her his other half. He had restrained himself with great difficulty. What Austin never dared to admit was that he had secretly kissed Joyce in his dreams. The one who had tasted the sweetness but dared not take a step forward. It had always been him. Not only did he forbid himself from crossing the line, but he also snuffed out Joyce's affection in its cradle. He couldn't bear the pain of losing her. As Austin sat on the plane to Australia, his secretary watched his face remain dark the entire journey. Throughout the trip, Austin didn't dare to close his eyes. His mind was filled with memories of him and Joyce. When he met 8-year-old Joyce, he was happy to ride the roller coaster with her. When 11-year-old Joyce lost her sister, he felt heartbroken watching over her as she knelt alone in the mourning hall. When 12-year-old Joyce had her first period, he felt grateful to be the one to teach her how to take care of herself. When 15-year-old Joyce decided to embrace a new life, he was gratified. When he received Joyce's confession of love, he was a coward. He tried to use marriage as a way to stop Joyce from going down the wrong path, to keep her by his side as family. Austin selfishly wanted to sever Joyce's romantic feelings and put her on the right path. Only as family could they be together forever without being separated. But he hadn't expected Joyce's love to be so passionate. It consumed her and ignited him as well. It left him with no room for retreat, so powerful that it frightened him. Austin didn't dare to face the courageous Joyce, so he retreated. He even went so far as to use a so-called old flame as a shield. But later, he realized he was wrong, terribly wrong. Austin wanted to hide Joyce away, to admire her secretly and alone. He had once, after Joyce fell asleep, quietly leaned in and kissed her lips. He was intoxicated by the kiss, trying in vain to quench his thirst. His hand uncontrollably moved towards her clothes, but he snapped back to his senses when he heard her murmur in her sleep. Austin slapped himself without hesitation, cursing himself as a beast. How could he dare to covet Joyce? However, when he learned of Joyce's feelings, he was ecstatic. But at the same time, he was afraid. He was afraid of society's judgment and didn't dare to face Joyce's intense feelings. He was a cowardly clown. He wanted Joyce to be close to him, yet he pushed her away. Austin didn't dare to face Joyce's passionate and pure emotions, but when he found out she had abandoned him, he was furious. He was the one who pushed Joyce away, but he became insanely jealous of her aunt when he learned she had gone to Australia. Austin believed it was Jean who had snatched Joyce away from him. Austin regretted it. He regretted it deeply. Upon finally arriving in Australia, Austin's secretary respectfully handed him the phone. "Mr. Austin, I've contacted Miss Joyce's Aunt Jean." Austin took the phone. "Aunt Jean, I'm at Berkeley Harbor right now. Would it be convenient to meet?" Jean's cheerful laughter came through the phone. "Austin, we were just talking about you. I'll bring Joyce along." Hearing Joyce's name, Austin felt an inexplicable possessiveness. Only he could call her Joyce so familiarly. He said bitterly, "Don't tell Joyce I'm here. Let's just have it be you and me today." There was a pause on the other end, and then Jean smoothed things over. "Austin, you took care of Joyce for 10 years. I understand how hard it is to raise a child. Our family owes you. If there's anything I can do to help, just ask." Austin's dark eyes flickered. There was one thing he didn't say. The words, "I want Joyce," rolled around on his tongue, but he forced them down. After hanging up, he saw his secretary's hesitant expression. When Austin saw the phone in his hand, his eyes widened. It was Joyce's phone, smashed to pieces. His heart felt like it was being squeezed by a giant hand, the pain so intense he almost fainted. No wonder his countless calls had gone unanswered. So she had thrown the phone away. His eyes turned red. The old Joyce would never have missed a single one of his calls. Chapter 10. Joyce was at a jewelry design exhibition, a venue her aunt had chosen for her. Today was her first meeting with her blind date. Chloe had initially wanted to go with Joyce, but when she heard it was a date, she waved goodbye enthusiastically. "Good luck, cousin, bring me back a cousin-in-law." Joyce didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Chloe was such a clever child. After spending these past few days with them, she felt that coming to Australia was the right decision. She hadn't thought about Austin in a long time. She stood staring at a world-famous diamond ring, the Black Fairy Tale. Joyce had once been full of romantic fantasies and yearned for a love that was steadfast and true. This led her to the idea of designing a black diamond ring. She had stayed up for several nights to create the design. She noticed that this Black Fairy Tale ring bore a striking resemblance to her own design. Joyce didn't know if her design sketches had been leaked, but she had been in a hurry to leave the country, so she hadn't thought about pursuing it. Her eyes flickered as a person came to mind. Her brother-in-law, Austin. All of Joyce's jewelry design sketches were in the study, which was where Austin worked. Only he could have easily gotten his hands on her sketches before she could sort out her thoughts. A magnetic voice sounded beside her. "You like this one?" Joyce looked up at the man next to her. He was tall and well-built, dressed in a tailored suit with a faint smile on his lips. When Joyce recognized the person beside her, she exclaimed in surprise, "It's you, Heath, long time no see." In the jewelry design competition, Joyce had taken first place, and Heath had come in second. Joyce used to tease Heath, "I feel bad for winning the championship so many times in a row. Maybe I should let you win for a change?" Heath's face would turn beet red, but he would hold back his words. He would mutter, "I don't need you to let me win." Joyce would laugh until she couldn't stand up straight. After returning to her dorm, Joyce heard her friend gushing about Heath's accomplishments. Her friend concluded with, "I like him." She clutched the perfumed confession letter in her hand, too shy to give it to Heath. Joyce decided to play matchmaker. She took the envelope, called out to Heath, and handed it to him. "Here, this is for you." Heath's friend, standing next to him, threw a basketball into Heath's arms and snatched the letter. Joyce hadn't expected him to open it and read it out loud in public. Although Joyce's roommate was shy, the contents of the letter were bold. Heath, the button on your shirt was open the day you gave your speech. Your chest is quite pale. I like it. Heath's face turned bright red, and he reached out to grab the letter. Joyce's face flushed. She hadn't expected her friend to be so direct. However, before she could explain, she never saw Heath again. Later, Joyce heard that he had gone abroad. The tall and slender Heath in front of her said regretfully, "It's been about 5 years, hasn't it?" There was something else he didn't say. "It's actually been 5 years and 4 months since I last saw you." Joyce subtly moved away from the black fairy tale ring. "I don't like this ring." The next moment, she froze. She looked down at her hand, which was being held firmly by a large hand. She followed the hand up and saw Heath's affectionate smile. "Can I hold your hand?" That's what Joyce heard Heath say. Chapter 11. Watch out, a waiter approaching them shouted anxiously. A dog had appeared from nowhere and suddenly went wild at the jewelry exhibition. It darted frantically through the crowd, scattering jewelry and diamond rings in its wake. The crazed dog was now charging straight for Joyce. Joyce's eyes widened in terror. Dogs were her greatest fear. The dog's eyes were bloodshot and it was foaming at the mouth. It was clearly rabid. Joyce's feet felt nailed to the floor. She couldn't move. Just before the dog reached her, it was hit with a tranquilizer dart. As it lunged, its paws swiped down heavily. In the nick of time, a figure rushed towards her. Heath swept her into his arms, his voice filled with concern. "Why did you just freeze? That's a rabid dog." Joyce's body trembled. She wanted to reassure Heath, but she found she couldn't. 2 streams of tears ran down her pale face. She smelled the fresh scent of pine on Heath, which helped calm her frayed nerves. Joyce tried to accept Heath, her fingers clutching his back in return. She felt a stickiness on her fingertips. Joyce looked down and saw that her hand was covered in blood. She moved behind Heath and saw the shocking scratches on his back. "You're hurt, I'm taking you to the hospital." She stepped away from him. The visible anxiety on Joyce's face pleased Heath. He smiled through his pale lips. "You're worried about me?" Joyce admitted readily. "Yes, I'm worried about you." Heath's lips curved upwards. "Then hug me." She wrapped her arms around Heath's lean waist without hesitation. "Is this okay?" Before Heath could react, he was struck by a fist. Joyce was stunned. She saw that the newcomer was her long-unseen brother-in-law, Austin. Seeing him again, Joyce felt a strange sense of surrealism. Her first instinct was to prevent him from misunderstanding her relationship with another man. But then Joyce remembered she had already decided to give up on Austin. Why should she care what he thought? She watched as Austin and Heath started fighting. Heath only protected his head and didn't fight back. The fight was more like a one-sided beating from Austin. Austin, stop! Joyce's mind was in turmoil. She felt powerless in the face of the situation. Austin's eyes were red. "Did he take advantage of you? Don't be afraid, I'll take care of him for you. After I'm done with him, Joyce, you're coming home with me." Joyce blurted out, "He's my fiancé, the only home I'm going back to is one with him." Austin's raised fist froze in midair. He turned to look at Joyce with a wounded expression. "He's your fiancé? Then what am I?" Joyce helped Heath up from the ground. "Let me introduce you. This is my fiancé, and that is my brother-in-law, Austin. I'm sorry, he's just very protective of me, so there might be some misunderstandings. I hope you won't take it to heart." Heath waved his hand, wiping the blood from the corner of his mouth. "Nice to meet you. My name is Heath, and I'm Joyce's fiancé." Joyce waved at Austin. "Austin, I need to take Heath to the hospital. Please excuse us." Austin instinctively said, "I don't know my way around." Joyce blinked. "You're a grown man, Austin. If you're really lost, you can ask for directions." Heath stepped in to mediate. "If you don't mind, I can arrange for a driver to take you." Chapter 12. Joyce put Heath's arm over her shoulder. "I'll help you. You need the car more right now. As for my brother-in-law, he can figure it out himself." Heath looked apologetic. "I'm sorry, brother-in-law. I'll be sure to visit with Joyce another day." Joyce got Heath into the car without looking back. Just as she was about to close the car door, she heard Austin's voice. "Joyce, are you abandoning me?" Joyce's heart felt like it had been struck a heavy blow. "Of course not, Austin. You did raise me for 10 years after all. I'll be sure to send you holiday greetings. I wish you and your sweetheart all the best. Remember to send me an invitation when you get married. I'll definitely be there." With that, she closed the door and rolled up the window. She saw Austin still standing in the same spot. Joyce took a few deep breaths and then squeezed Heath's hand. "Why are you so foolish? A rabid dog is dangerous." Before she could finish, she was pulled into a warm embrace. "Can you let me hold you for a moment? Just for a moment." Joyce froze. Her first instinct was to push Heath away, but after hearing his words, her heart softened. Heath's voice whispered in her ear, "Joyce, can you give me a chance? Let me be the man you spend the rest of your life with." Joyce's face turned red all the way to her ears. She closed her eyes. "I think we're moving too fast, but we can start by trying to be a couple." The next moment, Joyce felt Heath cup her face. His forehead rested against hers. Joyce could even feel Heath trembling. Suddenly, her heart melted completely. The man before her was cautiously trying to win her over. Heath asked softly, "Can I kiss you?" The tips of Joyce's ears were burning red. She gave a soft mem. She felt a pair of soft lips press against hers. For the first time, she experienced the feeling of being treasured. "So this is what it feels like to be loved," Joyce thought hazily. When Joyce got home, she saw her aunt sitting on the sofa, drinking tea. "Aunt Jean, you're still up." Her aunt smiled gently. "Joyce, how did it go with that young man, Heath, today? Do you have a good feeling about him?" Joyce blushed and nodded, her eyes full of tenderness. "We're still getting to know each other." Jean subtly breathed a sigh of relief. "Get some rest. If it's convenient, bring him home to meet us." Joyce's eyes curved into a smile. She held her aunt's arm and swayed it back and forth. "Aunt Jean, it's not that fast yet. I want to observe him a little more." In reality, she wasn't entirely against Heath. But the after effects of Austin were too strong, and she couldn't fully accept Heath just yet. Joyce went upstairs. Jean, sitting on the sofa, muttered to herself, "What on earth happened between you and Austin?" After meeting Austin, she had sensed that his feelings for Joyce were unusual. Their relationship seemed to be a bit beyond the ordinary. It was raining outside. Joyce sat by the window, lost in thought. She rested her chin on her hand, tilting her head to listen to the sound of the rain. Her room was bright and warm, the best lit room in the villa. There was also a huge floor-to-ceiling window. Joyce could design jewelry or practice yoga here anytime. Her phone screen lit up. Joyce had received a text from an unknown number. She opened it and saw a picture of Austin standing in the rain, along with a message. "Joyce, I'm downstairs at your house. Can you come out and see me?" Chapter 13. Joyce's nose tingled. She felt that this belated affection was cheaper than dirt. Her slender fingers flew across the phone screen, but in the end, she didn't reply. She expertly deleted the message and blocked the number. Joyce turned off the lights and drew the curtains. She lay in bed, wrapped in her blanket. She had just agreed to give Heath a chance today. She shouldn't have any more emotional entanglements with her brother-in-law. Joyce was very clear-headed. A missed opportunity was still a mistake. She drifted off to sleep. Unexpectedly, she woke up in the middle of the night. She rubbed her sleepy eyes and instinctively went to the window. She was stunned to see that Austin was still downstairs. Joyce frowned. She threw on a coat, grabbed an umbrella, and went out. She quickly ran downstairs and saw Austin shivering in the rain. Joyce held the umbrella over both of them. "Austin, it's late. Go home and rest. You're an adult. You should know that standing in the rain will make you sick." The next moment, Joyce was pulled into a cold embrace. "Joyce, I knew you still cared about me. Joyce, please come home with me. I didn't take good care of you. It's my fault. Just give me one more chance." Joyce pushed Austin away forcefully, the rain soaking her clothes. "Austin, Miss Lorraine is still waiting for you at home. Before she could finish her sentence. Austin pressed forward, pinning Joyce against the wall. His trembling hands cupped her face, and he leaned in to kiss her. Tears streamed from the corners of Joyce's eyes. She instinctively bit Austin, but he didn't seem to feel the pain. He only let her go when she was almost out of breath. Joyce wiped her mouth vigorously, as if trying to scrub away germs. "Austin, please have some self-respect." Austin's eyes were red. "Don't you love me? I'll marry you, just come home with me." Joyce looked up and met his gaze quietly. "Can you guarantee that your family will remain indifferent when they find out? The person you marry can be anyone, but it will never be me." Joyce hesitated for a moment. "Lorraine is not the right person for you. You deserve better, Austin. Go home, Austin. It's not good for you to stay here." Austin stood in the rain, looking utterly defeated. Seeing the calm Joyce, the last of his defenses crumbled. Tears streamed down his face. "Why are you willing to go with another man but not give me a chance?" Joyce didn't answer his question. She just picked up the umbrella, pushed it into Austin's hand, and walked away. The moment she turned, her tears fell. "Once it's over, you can't go back. I hope you find happiness, Austin. But unfortunately, your happiness is no longer me." After being out in the rain, Joyce fell ill and was bedridden. Heath, still recovering himself, volunteered to take care of her. She drank the warm congee, her eyes curving into a smile as she looked at him. "Thank you for your hard work. The congee is delicious." Heath's hand, holding the spoon, paused. "I'm glad you like it." Joyce noticed the bloodshot veins in his eyes. "Go get some rest. Don't wear yourself out." Heath looked up at Joyce. "Thank you for not abandoning me." Joyce looked up. "Why would I abandon you?" His expression was faint. "That night, I was really worried you would leave with him. I could only watch. I told myself I should trust you to handle things." Joyce was surprised. She understood that Heath was talking about her meeting with her brother-in-law in the middle of the night. She took the bowl from Heath and lowered her head, taking small sips of the congee. "He's just my brother-in-law, nothing more." Chapter 14. Heath let out a sigh of relief. He reached out and stroked Joyce's head. "When you're better, let's go on a trip, to a place where no one knows us." Joyce put down the bowl and wiped her mouth with a napkin. "Heath, let's get married." Heath was stunned for a moment, then his face lit up with excitement and surprise. He suddenly pulled Joyce into a hug. "Okay, whatever you want, I'll agree. Thank you for giving me the chance to take care of you for the rest of your life, Mrs. Heath. I look forward to our future together." Joyce wrapped her arms around his neck. "Mr. Heath, I look forward to our future together, too." Heath held Joyce's chin and kissed her without hesitation. He mumbled, "I love you, Joyce." Joyce was back to her vibrant self. During her illness, Heath had taken care of her around the clock, and she had visibly put on some weight. Even her Aunt Jean teased her about being nourished by love. When Jean learned of the good news, she became busy. As Joyce's aunt, she had to personally oversee all the wedding preparations. Jean decided to give Joyce an unforgettable wedding. Joyce was currently dozing on Heath's shoulder. They had come to watch the sunrise. They had been sitting by the sea since before dawn. The sea breeze was gentle, and the temperature was pleasant. Joyce was so tired that she fell asleep. Heath looked at Joyce with adoration, holding her carefully. It was as if he was holding the entire world. When the sun began to rise, Heath gently woke Joyce up. She rubbed her sleepy eyes and watched the sun rise from the sea. The warm sunlight shone on the water, and the sparkling surface of the sea lifted Joyce's spirits. "I'll do anything you want to do," Heath whispered in Joyce's ear. Joyce looked up at Heath, suddenly feeling the urge to kiss him. She closed her eyes and leaned in to kiss Heath, landing a peck on his cheek. Heath froze like a statue. His cheeks turned red, and he was so flustered he didn't know where to put his hands. "Can I kiss you?" A blush crept up Joyce's face, and she nodded lightly. Then she felt a warm touch on her lips as Heath kissed her gently. She almost wanted to laugh. She put her hand on Heath's shoulder. They kissed at sunrise, the orange light casting a glow around them. "What kind of wedding do you want?" Heath rested his forehead against Joyce's, his lips lingering on the corner of her mouth. Joyce thought for a moment, and then gave a few keywords. Cats, flowers, a church, a black wedding. Joyce was woken up by something licking her. She opened her sleepy eyes and saw a fluffy figure perched regally beside her. She realized it was a purebred Persian cat. Joyce was wide awake now. She hugged the cat, unable to put it down. She was surprised to see that this cat looked very similar to her deceased Snowball. She was touched by Heath's thoughtfulness, and her appreciation for him grew. There was a knock on the door, and her aunt's voice came through. "Joyce, are you awake? You have a busy day today. We need to go to the wedding exhibition, pick out invitation styles, decorations." Her aunt rambled on, and Joyce leaned back against the headboard lazily. "Aunt Jean, you can come into my room anytime. You don't need to knock. You can decide on all these little things. You know my tastes perfectly." Her aunt opened the door, her eyes slightly red. "Joyce, thank you for giving me the chance to live with you. Planning your wedding feels like marrying off my own daughter. I'm a little reluctant to let you go." Tears streamed down her face, and she wiped them away with her thumb, smiling. Joyce's nose tingled. She got up and hugged Jean. "Aunt Jean, you're my only remaining family in this world. I want you to be happy." Jean hugged Joyce back, moved. "Yes, we are family." Her eyes flickered, and she noticed the Persian cat licking its paws on the bed. Jean was surprised. "This cat," Joyce smiled. Isn't it beautiful? Heath gave it to me. Chapter 15. Jean smiled but didn't say anything. Heath had indeed planned to give Joyce a cat, but that cat was downstairs, and it was a black cat. Jean stroked Joyce's hair and replied with a smile, "It's beautiful." Joyce took the cat with her everywhere she went. She noticed that when Heath came over and saw the purebred Persian cat, he could barely contain his smile. She held the cat. "I love the cat you picked out for me. Thank you." Heath let out a sigh of relief. He leaned down and kissed Joyce's forehead. "I'm glad you like it." Heath took Joyce to a wedding expo, a one-stop shop for everything marriage-related. Heath and her aunt were swarmed by salespeople, leaving Joyce to her own devices. She wandered through the exhibition with her cat, feeling a little bored. Seeing the happy couples around her, she suddenly felt a sense of anticipation. She looked forward to having a home of her own with Heath. Suddenly, a sharp scream pierced the air at the exhibition, followed by the roar of a car engine. A car was speeding towards Joyce. Joyce's eyes widened in terror. The cat in her arms, startled, jumped out of her embrace. The next moment, she saw the cat leap onto the out-of-control car and start scratching at the driver's eyes. Joyce was stunned to see that the driver was a woman, and she was glaring at her with hatred. Thanks to the cat, the woman panicked and instinctively swerved the steering wheel. Screaming, she drove the car into a swimming pool. Just as the car was about to graze Joyce, a tall figure lunged towards her. She was held tightly in his arms as they rolled away from the accident scene. Joyce was shaken but unharmed. The scent of a pleasant cologne filled her nose. She realized the person holding her was Austin. Joyce politely and distantly broke free from Austin's embrace. "Austin, thank you for saving my life." She looked at the pool, still in shock. The car was floating on the surface, but the person inside was gone. The Persian cat was also gone. The entire wedding expo was in chaos. Security personnel arrived late. Fortunately, no one was injured. Austin's custom-made suit was covered in dust and torn in some places. His dark eyes locked onto Joyce. "As long as you're okay." He got up and left without another word. Joyce's vision was filled with the frantic faces of her aunt and Heath. They surrounded her, and after confirming she was safe, they let out a huge sigh of relief. Jean was terrified. "Let's go home." "It's too dangerous here." Heath's tall frame trembled uncontrollably. He could barely speak. "Joyce, I'm so afraid of losing you again." Joyce hugged her trembling aunt, comforting her. "Aunt Jean, look, I'm fine, aren't I?" She winked at Heath. "Shall we go home together?" Sitting in the car, Joyce felt an emptiness in her heart. She was thinking about the cat, Austin, and the woman in the car. She couldn't see the woman's face clearly, but from her fear of cats, Joyce guessed the culprit was Lorraine. She was confused. Why, even after she had come to Australia, was Lorraine still haunting her? Why did she even try to run her over with a car? Joyce suppressed her many questions. She didn't understand what had happened between Lorraine and Austin. After the accident at the wedding expo, Jean didn't dare take her to crowded places anymore. Jean never wanted to experience watching Joyce in danger again. She had seen with her own eyes that it was Austin who had pulled her away from the accident. Fortunately, both of them were unharmed. Otherwise, Jean wouldn't be able to face her deceased brother and sister-in-law in a large house. Lorraine's curses could be heard. Chapter 16. Austin sat wearily on the sofa, watching the frenzied Lorraine without a word. His assistant was cleaning his wounds. Despite being seriously injured, he refused to go to the hospital. When Austin rolled on the ground with Joyce, a piece of glass had pierced his back. The assistant carefully removed the glass shards one by one. He looked at Austin's bloody back and sighed again. "Mr. Austin, you need to go to the hospital for this wound. If it's not cleaned properly, it could be fatal. The glass shards may be small, but if one gets into your bloodstream and travels around, it could rupture a major organ, and then it will be too late." Austin put on his clothes, unfazed. "Joyce is getting married. I have to wait until after her wedding to go to the hospital. Otherwise, I won't get to see her in her wedding dress. I've seen her in many different ways throughout her life, but I've never seen her in a wedding dress. She's getting married, but unfortunately, the groom can't be me." Tears of sorrow streamed from Austin's eyes. Lorraine, standing by, screamed hysterically, "Austin, I hope you die a miserable death. I'm going to destroy the woman you love most, so you can feel the pain." Austin had locked Lorraine up before the police could take her away. He looked down at the crazed Lorraine. "You want to kill Joyce? You'll have to run over my dead body first." Austin had never left Joyce. He had even bought the villa next to Jean's, just so he could stand at his huge floor-to-ceiling window every morning and watch Joyce. Austin often felt a pain in his heart, but seeing Joyce would alleviate it. The secretary had repeated his advice to go to the hospital until he was blue in the face. But Austin was stubborn. He had only one thing to say: "I want to see Joyce." He loved watching Joyce sit by the floor-to-ceiling window, quietly drawing her design sketches, the sunlight warming her. He knew that Joyce would soon fall asleep, but the person who would cover her with a blanket was not him. One time, Austin saw Heath bend down and pick Joyce up. Heath looked at Austin through the floor-to-ceiling window. For the first time, he felt a chill run down his spine. Austin's mind was filled with the thought, "I'm done for. Joyce is definitely going to want to move." When the doorbell rang, Austin's heart, which had been in his throat, settled back down. Without a doubt, it was Heath standing outside the door. Austin had considered countless scenarios, but in every one, he would not move away, nor would he disturb Joyce's life. He just wanted to see her. However, what he hadn't expected was that Heath had come with only one purpose: "Let Joyce choose for herself. I won't interfere with her seeing you. But once she makes a decision, you have to leave her. I don't want my wife to still have her old flame in her eyes." Austin's dark eyes flickered. He smiled bitterly. "Even you can see it," Heath said concisely. "We're both men. I understand the way you look at her." On that rainy day, Austin had an inexplicable urge to ask Joyce out. If she came out and agreed to go with him, he would marry her, no matter the consequences. But he waited, and Joyce never came. Late at night, Austin's legs were numb from standing in the rain. Just as he was about to give up hope, Joyce appeared. But she hadn't come to accept his proposal. He lost his head and forcefully kissed the lips he had longed for so long, and they were both sober. Joyce bit him, but he felt the pain in his heart was even worse. Chapter 17. He had finally and completely lost her. Austin and Heath had made a deal, and now Joyce had not chosen him. He had lost completely. Heath, like a victorious peacock, proudly displayed his beautiful feathers. After some effort, Austin learned that Joyce and Heath were getting married. The moment he found out that Joyce had been the one to propose, Austin's world collapsed. He bought Joyce a new white cat. It was the last thing he could do for her. Austin exported all the surveillance footage from his house. He sat in front of the computer for days, sleepless. When he saw Joyce collapse from her allergic reaction, he felt like he was dying of a broken heart. When he found out that Lorraine had thrown Joyce's medicine in the trash, he wanted to make Lorraine disappear from the face of the earth. Austin slapped himself, his eyes red with suppressed tears. "Austin, you're a real beast. What have you done to the princess you once spoiled?" Lorraine had personally poisoned Snowball, and he had given Lorraine the ring design. One by one, these things became the catalysts that pushed Joyce away. Austin began to cough incessantly. He saw the shocking amount of blood in his palm. He pulled himself together and, remotely from Australia, crushed the Lorraine family back home until they were like rats in the street. The Lorraine family had hoped that Lorraine could appease Austin and convince him not to destroy them completely. But what happened next plunged the Lorraine family into an abyss. Austin had his secretary expose the fact that Lorraine had plagiarized Joyce's jewelry design. The Lorraine family was once again a top trending topic. Austin announced that the Lorraine family could have a chance at survival if they disowned Lorraine. The Lorraine family did not hesitate to sever ties with her. Lorraine's reputation was in tatters. When she found out that Joyce was the root of all her problems, she bought a ticket to Australia without a second thought. She was going for revenge. Lorraine completely lost her mind. "Austin, you've made me a pariah, all because of one Joyce. I want you to pay with blood." Unexpectedly, as soon as she arrived at the port, she was detained by Austin's men. Somehow, Lorraine managed to escape from Austin's grasp. She even managed to rent a car and had the audacity to drive it straight at Joyce. Austin's mind was filled with images of Joyce, covered in blood, lying in a pool of her own blood. "Austin, why didn't you save me?" Fortunately, in the end, Austin managed to save Joyce. Otherwise, he would never have been able to sleep peacefully for the rest of his life. Joyce sat cross-legged on the sofa in her loungewear. Beside her was a neat stack of invitations. She had personally written Heath's and her names on them. She rubbed her sore arm and stared at the gold-embossed invitations, lost in thought. Everything in front of her felt like a dream. A pair of large hands rested on her shoulders, kneading them to relieve the tension. Heath's voice sounded, "Honey, if you're tired, take a rest." The text on these invitations could have been printed, but you insisted on writing them by hand. "It pains me to see you work so hard." Joyce's lips curved slightly. Writing them by hand shows more sincerity. Heath couldn't resist leaning down and kissing her forehead. "Honey, thank you for your hard work." Joyce looked down at the invitations, and a figure appeared in her mind. "Remember to send an invitation to Austin as well." Heath nodded. He took an invitation and left. Joyce's phone buzzed with a notification. Lorraine disowned by her family, now a social outcast. Chapter 18. Her eyes flickered, and she clicked on the notification. Joyce quickly scanned the news and found that Lorraine had actually been removed from her family's official records by her parents. The black fairy tale, design she had claimed as her own, was now labeled as plagiarism. So, the ring was indeed a copy of her design. Joyce had been unwittingly thrust into the spotlight. Some keen observers noticed that the name on the design sketch was Chenio. Joyce gave a bitter smile. She had named the ring after a combination of her and Austin's names. She had once dreamed of wearing this ring and marrying Austin. She understood why Lorraine hated her so much. But wasn't the root of it all her own jealousy? Joyce shook her head, no longer paying attention to anything related to Lorraine. Upon learning that Lorraine and Austin had not ended up together, Joyce even felt a sense of relief. Austin is so outstanding, he deserves a better woman. Meanwhile, Heath knocked on Austin's door with the invitation. Austin opened the door just a crack, his tired voice coming through. "What are you here for?" A gold-embossed invitation was handed to Austin. Heath said, "You are welcome to attend my and Joyce's wedding. You are her brother-in-law, and she would want the most important man in her life to be there." Austin took the invitation. "Okay." As he was about to close the door, he heard Heath say, "Are you okay?" Austin's voice was hoarse. "I'm fine, thanks for asking." He closed the door without hesitation. Heath sensed that something was off. The moment the door opened, he had clearly smelled the strong scent of alcohol. Women's clothing was scattered on the floor. He took out his phone and hesitantly made a call. Austin stood behind the door, waiting until he was sure Heath had left before letting go of Lorraine. He glanced at her indifferently. "Don't scream or you'll regret it." Disheveled, Lorraine covered her face and wept. Looking at the demonic Austin, she regretted ever provoking him. She hugged her shoulders tightly, the cold air chilling her exposed skin. Lorraine realized that Austin was a complete madman. He was making her experience everything he had put Joyce through, blow for blow. She was afraid of cats and allergic to them. Austin locked her in a room with cats, listening coldly to her screams. Lorraine's body itched all over, but there was no medicine to cure it. Lorraine knelt on the floor, begging Austin for medicine, but his reply made her blood run cold. "What were you doing when Joyce asked you for medicine?" Lorraine dug her sharp nails into her face and body, crying her eyes out. She screamed, "I was wrong." But Austin felt it wasn't enough. He waited until Lorraine had passed out from the pain before giving her medicine. And then the cycle would repeat. Lorraine was being tortured to the brink of insanity. She knew she was wrong to have tormented Joyce, and now she was facing Austin's crazed revenge. Austin looked down at the begging Lorraine. "It's too late. You like to torture people, so I'll make sure you remember this for the rest of your life." Inside the wedding chapel, the band played the wedding march. Joyce, in the most beautiful black wedding dress, walked into the chapel. She walked slowly towards Heath at the altar, holding her aunt's arm. Her aunt's tears never stopped flowing. Joyce gently wiped away Jean's tears. "Aunt Jean, you should be happy for me." Jean gave a tearful smile. "Joyce, I'm just so happy, seeing you about to get married. I can't tell you how happy I am, I just have a tear duct problem, I can't control it." Joyce hugged her aunt. "Thank you, Aunt Jean." Her hand linked with Heath's arm. She heard her aunt say seriously, "We're entrusting our Joyce to you. Don't let me ever find out you've mistreated her, or there will be consequences. If you ever stop loving her, please bring her back to us whole. We will always treasure her." Hearing this, Joyce couldn't hold back her tears. Heath kissed her tears away. He smiled. "Don't worry, Aunt Jean, Joyce is my life." Joyce glanced at the pews. The chapel was full, but she didn't see her brother-in-law, Austin. She closed her eyes. This is for the best. A clean break, and we can each find our own happiness. The priest stood at the altar, solemnly reciting the vows. When he asked Joyce if she was willing to marry Heath and if anyone objected, a voice stumbled into the chapel entrance. She shouted, "I object," chapter 19. Joyce's eyes widened. The woman was none other than the disappeared Lorraine. She was wearing only a tattered leather jacket, and her face was stained with blood. She shouted at Joyce, "If you don't want your brother-in-law to die, get him to a hospital now." A group of police officers followed behind Lorraine. As if she had completed her mission, she raised her hands and allowed the police to handcuff her. She said one thing lightly, which Joyce only understood much later. Lorraine was saying she was free. The wedding did not proceed. As soon as Joyce heard those words, her heart began to pound. Heath grabbed her and they rushed to the villa next door. The moment Joyce reached the door, the thick smell of blood choked her, bringing tears to her eyes. When she saw Austin lying in a pool of blood, she screamed in terror. Austin, her fingers trembled as she dialed for an ambulance. For the first time, Joyce thought about how one person could lose so much blood. She helplessly pressed her hands against Austin's wound. She couldn't hear what Heath was saying in her ear. Joyce watched as Austin was wheeled into the operating room. She leaned against the hospital wall in her black wedding dress, dried tear tracks on her face. Heath brought her a bowl of hot noodle soup. "Eat. You need strength to wait for him. I'll wait with you." Joyce was terrified. She hugged Heath. "I'm sorry, I ruined our wedding." Heath ruffled her hair. "It's okay. We can have the wedding another day, but you only have one brother-in-law." Joyce smiled through her tears, grateful to have a man who understood her so deeply. "Thank you, Heath." The surgery lasted 8 hours. A tired-looking doctor came out and asked, "Who is the patient's family?" Joyce was the first to rush forward. The doctor let out a huge sigh of relief. "It's a good thing you brought him in when you did. Any later, and even a miracle couldn't have saved him. Mr. Austin has a stab wound in his back, but that's not the main issue. The fatal injury was a glass shard in his back that was only superficially treated. A large piece had traveled near his heart and almost ruptured a blood vessel." Joyce was stunned. When did Austin get a glass shard embedded in his body? The doctor continued to rattle off post-op instructions. Joyce patiently took note of everything. "Can I see him?" The doctor waved his hand. "After 24 hours, he needs to rest now." Joyce had never felt that 24 hours could be so long. Heath had tried to persuade her to rest, and her aunt had too. But she stubbornly remained by Austin's side. Joyce was so exhausted that she fell asleep by Austin's bedside. In her sleep, she felt a large hand stroking her hair. Joyce woke with a start. She opened her eyes and met Austin's dark gaze. She smiled. "Austin, you're awake?" Then she fainted. When Joyce regained consciousness a day later, she looked at the IV drip in her arm and gave a bitter smile. "I'm sorry, I've caused you all trouble again." Heath hugged her, his heart aching. "Honey, if you wear yourself out, what will I do? And you don't need to apologize to me. I'm your husband, the man you'll spend the rest of your life with. You can rely on me for anything." Joyce unhesitatingly pulled down Heath's collar and kissed his chattering lips. She smiled. "Is that better?" Chapter 20. Joyce found out the reason for Austin's injury. It was from when he had rolled on a piece of broken glass while saving her. At the time, he had walked away as if nothing had happened, and Joyce had assumed he was fine. Now, thinking back on how she had escaped unscathed, her tears began to fall again. "Austin, I don't think I can ever repay you for this." Austin sat up in his hospital bed, a slight smile on his lips. "You just need to live your life well and be happy. Being able to see you from afar is enough for me." Joyce and Heath held their wedding again. This time, Austin was among the guests. He witnessed Joyce's wedding. As he watched Joyce in her black wedding dress walk slowly towards Heath, the pain in his heart intensified. He quietly left before the wedding was over. What he didn't tell Joyce was that his body was so depleted that his heart could no longer bear the strain. Seeing her marry the decent Heath was, in a way, his last wish fulfilled. Austin spent a great deal of time organizing his estate, naming Joyce as the beneficiary. He thought back to the day he had been on the brink of death. He had been threatening Lorraine when his vision suddenly went black, followed by a cold sensation in his back. He saw the panicked Lorraine holding a knife. He belatedly thought, "Lorraine, you tried to kill me in a way." He had to thank Lorraine. If she hadn't tried to escape, or had a change of heart and told Joyce he was dying, or if Heath hadn't called the police on the day he delivered the invitation, he might have really died in a foreign land. Heaven hadn't let him die, but had condemned him to a lingering existence. When the doctor showed him the report and told him he had a heart condition, he began to plan for his death. Austin found a beautiful burial plot for himself. He remembered it was a place Joyce had once described. "When I die, I want to be buried by the sea, listening to the ebb and flow of the tides every day, watching the clouds drift by. How wonderful would that be?" Instead of looking at lonely trees and listening to the sighs of old people around me. Thinking of this, Austin couldn't help but laugh. He immediately decided and bought the most expensive plot. Austin took care of everything. He left a card for Joyce. Then he bought the earliest ticket back to his home country. After the wedding, Joyce looked around for Austin, but her aunt told her he had already gone back. She felt a sense of loss. Heath kissed her cheek. "Do you want to go find him? I can go with you." Joyce smiled and shook her head. "No. My family and my love are in Australia. Where else would I go?" Heath couldn't resist. He swept Joyce off her feet and carried her into their bridal suite. Joyce belonged completely to Heath. Just a month later, news of her pregnancy spread. Heath doted on her like she was the apple of his eye. Joyce lived happily every day. Lorraine was sentenced to 5 years in prison for intentional assault, with a 1-year suspended sentence due to her role in saving a life. Joyce sighed. The once loving couple had ended up at each other's throats. Indeed, fate cannot be forced. Until one day, late in her pregnancy, Joyce received a call from her home country. She was so shocked that her water glass fell to the floor. She repeated in disbelief, "Who did you say died?" The staff member on the other end of the line said professionally, "Is this Miss Joyce? Mr. Austin passed away 3 days ago. The inheritance process has begun, and records show that you are the legal heir to his estate." Joyce's eyes turned red, and tears streamed down her face. She clutched her stomach and staggered back to the bedroom. Heath saw the water breaking, and his mind went blank for a moment. Then he rushed Joyce to the hospital. Joyce hadn't expected that just one phone call would shock her into labor. When Heath found out the reason, he fell silent. For a moment, it felt unreal. Austin is dead? The news meant nothing to him, but it was a devastating blow to Joyce. Heath had always been afraid to face one thing, that there would always be a place in Joyce's heart for Austin. But he still loved Joyce with all his heart, hoping she could make a little room for him. Joyce gave birth to a son. She looked at the baby once before passing out. The long labor had exhausted her. Heath looked at Joyce and their son on the bed, his heart melting. He felt that his life was complete. In that moment, he truly felt that Joyce belonged to him. Chapter 21. Joyce discovered that the villa next door had been Austin's residence in Australia. She also found the card Austin had left for her. It was exactly what she had done. Joyce made a decision. She decided to return to her home country, with her husband and son, to pay respects to Austin. Appearing in the villa back home again, Joyce looked at the weeping Mrs. Lynn, at a loss for what to do. Mrs. Lynn took out a USB drive that Austin had left for her. "Miss Joyce, please allow me to call you that. This USB drive was left by Mr. Austin. He instructed me to give it to you." Heath took the son from Joyce's arms. "I'll take our son for a walk around." "You," Joyce looked at him gently, "you're my husband. You don't have to avoid this." She took Heath's hand and went to Austin's study. She inserted the USB drive into the computer, and Austin appeared on the screen. He adjusted the camera and then sat down in a chair. Austin gazed gently at the camera. "Joyce, this is the last time I'll call you that. I don't think I'll ever see you again." Before he could finish, Austin began to cough up blood. He said impatiently, "Here we go again, this endless coughing of blood." Then he realized he was recording a video, so he adjusted his attitude. He looked at the blood on his clothes and said regretfully, "Let's start over." The moment Joyce saw Austin coughing up blood, her eyes widened. Tears streamed down her face. She hadn't realized how bad her brother-in-law's health had become. Austin probably didn't know that his several attempts to restart were all recorded. No matter how disheveled he was, he always appeared as a gentleman in front of Joyce. Joyce watched from beginning to end. Austin talked about many things, almost starting from her childhood. She then realized that Austin's love for her was bone deep. She understood why Austin had rejected her and that the judgment of society was the biggest obstacle between them. Heath, by her side, had witnessed Joyce and Austin's past. He then realized that his own devotion to Joyce paled in comparison to Austin's. After the video ended, Joyce was lost in a daze for a long time. She felt as if Austin was still by her side and they were still the same as before. But the cry of her son reminded her that there was no going back. Joyce took Heath and their son to pay their respects to Austin. When she saw that his grave faced the sea, she broke down. "I will live a good life with Heath and our son. I hope you don't meet me in your next life. Your life was too hard. I hope you can also meet someone who loves you very, very much." Heath looked at the distant sea and suddenly said, "If you want to see him, we can come back anytime. If you want to stay here, I'm willing to expand my business to this country for you." Joyce was moved beyond words. "Without Austin, the person standing in front of you now would not exist. But my home with you is in Australia, and my aunt is also in Australia, so we can just come back every year to pay our respects to him." Heath smiled. He kissed Joyce. "Okay," Joyce called Heath, "husband. You don't have to be humble or compromise in front of me. By the way, there's one more thing I haven't told you. I actually knew that Austin was living next door in Australia a long time ago." Heath was stunned. His cheeks flushed, feeling as if he had no secrets in front of Joyce. Joyce smiled gently. "I am trying very hard to love you," Heath cried. It was the first time he had shown his vulnerability in front of Joyce. Joyce kissed Heath. "Let's go home." The setting sun cast long shadows of Joyce and Heath. "Okay,"